Welcome, welcome to the Spiritual Seas podcast. And today we are back with episode 13 or 14. I'm not sure, but we've got Supriya Chechi here back, and we've ended the sixth chapter of the Gita in the last episode, and now we're going to start the seventh chapter right now. So let's go, Supriya Chechi. We can start.
Thank you, and I'm happy to be
Hare
back.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Jai Srila Prabhupada. Now, this chapter 7, with chapter 7, we are really getting into what's called the heart of the Bhagavad Gita. And these 18 chapters, the analogy of a book is used. Like the first 6 chapters and the last 6 chapters are the two covers, the front cover and the back heart the cover, presuming it's like a hardcover book or even a paperback book. And the middle in the middle 6 chapters, chapter 7 to chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, chapter 12, these are considered the heart of the Bhagavad Gita. The real content, the real meat or the real substance is all here. And because these are the bhakti chapters, the first 6 chapters talk about karma and how from a platform of karma you can gradually move to bhakti. The last 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, which we are yet to do, 13, speak about Gyan. Gyan not so much as a process, but it gives so much additional Gyan about how the world works and about Krishna and his devotees and so on, and the universe. But the middle 6 chapters are what are pure bhakti. So in chapter 7, remember the last verse of the last chapter? Do you recall, after telling us so much about Ashtanga Yoga, which is Dhyana Yoga, and how it is a process? Right at the end, 6.47,
This one,
what
no?
he, that's right, it's like a definitive, conclusive verse where Krishna is saying clearly that of all the yogis, that is, whether they are Ashtanga or Karma or Jnana yogis, it's the Bhakti yogi who constantly thinks of himself, who is the highest of all, and that is my considered opinion, and so on. So this one, yeah, right. Yoginam api sarvesham, that one. So and of all the yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. So that is connecting verse with chapter 7, because it's now he's going to talk about, he's going to give a lot of interesting information. And in chapter 7, verse 1, here you have the verse itself. Yeah. But
Yeah.
in the purport, and this is where we have to be very grateful to the commentators. In this case, the commentary and the translation and purport is by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So here he is giving, this is a crucial set of verses, 4 verses from the Bhagavatam. You will be familiar because you've been reading the Bhagavatam. Canto 1, chapter 2. Famous. I know the verses by heart, how the process works. So you see that chunk of verses. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can go straight to the translation to hear
Okay.
about Krishna literature. Yeah, do
Yeah.
you want to read?
Yeah, I'll read. So to hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures or to hear him from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lusts and avarice are diminished. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Thus, Bhakti Yogi severes the heart. Okay, you wanna say?
Yeah, correct. It severes. It
Se-
cuts.
se- severs the hard knot of material affection, enable one to come at once to the stage of asma, asamsayam samagram, understanding of the supreme absolute truth of personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees in Krishna consciousness can one understand the signs of Krishna.
So here, in a very succinct way, they talk of what actually is at work. This is clearly the process. And what really happens is, it says Bhakti Yoga cuts the hard knot of material affection. This is not to suggest that we start feeling very hateful towards our material contacts or relatives. What it means is that this an illusory, strong material affection and misidentification with this material temporary body is the root cause of us being stuck in this cycle of birth and death. So the knowledge, it's like it shines a torch on our situation, and it in the process, when the torch is, I mean, we can keep fooling ourselves that, you see a paper flower and you keep thinking it's a rose, it's a rose, it's a rose, it's smelling nice, it's got thorns, it's so beautiful, and I'm so grateful, I don't mind if I paid 500 rupees for the single rose. But someone is, and if someone comes and shines a strong torchlight on it, and you see it's just a paper flight, neither has got smell, nor is it worth even 1 rupee, and it's got no thorns, it's just illusion. You're forced to see things for what it is, they are. So that's what this science does. And in the process, your foolish and illusory delusion of that paper flower being a rose, it is cut. It puts things back in
In
perspective.
perspective.
That's
So
what these.
I have actually like when it comes to like the Bhagavad Gita, any even the Bhagavatam also, when they say like too much attachment to material objects, like will result in like sense objects, your desire for more sense pleasures and sense gratification. But like if you know that, like, okay, it says many times like family, friends, and relationships in general are part of the material energy that what do you say, that creates like suffering and all that. And that is like that is understandable, like that definitely does happen. But like, what is a person like then supposed to do then, if like if he has no choice, because he can't let go of his family just like that. It's not possible to like just so.
He's not expected to let go either. That's the issue. He is not expected to let go. He has to know his nature and where he is at, and work with that nature and understand that these connections are part of the purification. You can't prematurely give up these things. That will lead to kind of a chaotic future. You can't prematurely get renounced. What we need to do is to respect and value what we have and take the bad sides of it come as part of the purification, like we are doing our duty, we are doing our karma. And in forming new such material attachments, we should be a little cautious, discriminating, and thoughtful. You see, I might know I have a basic fascination or weakness for certain handloom handicraft prints. It's been put into me from the time I was in Delhi in college. There is Bagru, and there is Sanganeri, Rajasthani print, and there is Ajrak, and so on. That's all nice. I can't suddenly decide I'm not, or take what I have and throw it out, or say I'm not going to have anything to do with that. It's all Maya. I have to know that I do have this weakness for this kind of handloom textiles. So cautiously, if I what I can afford, and maybe even a little more than what I can afford, I buy selectively, use it, and at the same time give away things that I don't need. This is one way to deal with our material affection or attachment for an object. It's more complicated when it comes to people. That's why we had that verse in chapter 6, that someone who's advanced, he not only can tell the difference, he sees pebbles, stone, diamonds, all the same, he has the same reaction, but he also sees his enemies, friends, those who are envious of him, in the same way, because it's more complicated and much more difficult when you're talking about human beings. So we shouldn't get the idea that it is to turn us against and to cut off, not at all. Because the fact that we are placed by God's will or Krishna's will in a certain circumstance, it's for our purification and our learning. And I have had friends who didn't get along with a spouse, broke up the marriage, and she's now past 60. And she told me, because she is very God fearing and very much into introspection and meditation of one kind, though she's not an ISKCON devotee. She told me that the ugly or the unpleasant aspect of my husband that I just didn't want to take, and which I cut off because our marriage ended. Now my two daughters are grown up, one of them is married. But the one who is not married, the older daughter, she has got exactly the same nature and the same way of working, which is hurtful for me, for her, that is the mother was telling me, that my husband had. So just see what God is doing. He's putting me back in a situation because I have to finish learning the lessons that he has planned for me in this body, in this lifetime. I thought I could overthrow some of that unpleasantness when our marriage ended, and they parted ways. The man remarried. But just see, a few years he gave me to recover, and this lady went through a lot of purification because she met with a serious accident and so on. She rebuilt her life. Her daughters are with her. She has very little contact with that husband. So, but she said, look at this. What I'm seeing is, once my older daughter has become an adult, she's inherited the exact nature and the exact attitudes and approaches that used to hurt and put me off so much in my husband. And I'm now back stuck with her. So what do I understand? I have to understand that Krishna is not going to let me get out of this lifetime until I've learned the lessons he's planned for me. This is a mature understanding. This is actually what we are meant to do. She's so far. She's been able to not just regret that she didn't learn those lessons. She's realizing he's put her back in that same situation. So this is a really tough thing to do, very tough thing, because that is the reason why a yogi who can see the envious and the friendly and the happy and the unhappy all towards him equally is really, really advanced. Objects one can still get rid of. You like, some men generally like technological gadgets, women not so much maybe. I'm just generalizing for convenience. So they can buy, or they can give up, or they can give away and so on. But when it comes to our human connections, one has to be very cautious, and one can destroy and hurt people unnecessarily and make more problems for ourselves in the process. Because only the family that we live with really knows the worst side of us. That's what family means. You see, because our guard is down and we are who we are, and then we just keep hitting like pots and pans against each other, and we are stuck until death does us apart. And once death has separated two people, one may regret that I could have looked at that whole incident in such a better way. I could have forgiven that in the person who's now gone, or I could have adjusted a little bit. So these regrets, there is a reason why we are put into certain familial situations. It's a very strong reason. It's just our karma. And Krishna is watching all the time, even when we are trying to come to higher knowledge and trying to climb out of this, what is the Bhagavatam describes as an Andakupa family life. Because once you've got in, it's really very difficult to see the light. That is if you are hopelessly materially attached. So one has to really move very cautiously. Otherwise, Krishna will put us back in these same circumstances in this life itself or the next life. But here, therefore, you see people who have taken these verses we just read from the Bhagavatam, the translations which you read out, Kanan.
Yeah.
Take it very seriously, how the whole process over years, it's a hard process. Mothers or parents who bring up children and then find they get nothing in return. It's a thankless task. I've heard so many mothers tell me this. They have thankless task. The nights I stayed up because the boy or the girl, the daughter was sick, and the money that they forwent so many luxuries to help fulfill the desires of that particular child. So that thanklessness and the overall experience is what actually severs the not a material affection, but one has to keep hearing. And the crucial point is that the whole process of bhakti yoga starts through the ears, starts through hearing something that stops you in your tracks or makes you think again, or it resonates with you. So therefore, Krishna is saying here that now Krishna is going to start getting Arjuna to hear. And the next verse here, verse 2, it says, I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. But before you come to this second verse, in this first verse, that very useful section from Canto 1, Chapter 2, which of how we didn't go into the verse by verse translation, but this big chunk of that's quoted in the middle of inside the purport.
Yeah.
Uh, this bhakti yoga severs the heart, not of material affection. But a few lines above is the process in greater detail. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the mode of passion and ignorance.
Hello. 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 I think you had
I
gone in
can,
between. I think. Yeah.
yeah, it's come
Yeah.
back now.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You can go
So
ahead.
this process is what I personally find very rewarding, that one becomes free, at least partially, one becomes aware, free from the modes of passion and ignorance. And thus material lust and avarice, that is greed, are diminished. Because this is real liberation. When we can become free from our own awful nature, which causes so much suffering. Because then the rest, other things start falling in place. So by development of devotion service, this only Bhakti Yoga can do. Why is it that Jnana Yoga and the Karma Yoga can't do it? Bhakti Yoga does it because in the process of Bhakti or this path, one is constantly developing or intensifying his or her connection with the Supreme Lord. So that means there's some sweetness coming from there. Is it gone again?
No. It's still there. Still there. I think. Yeah. It's still there. The light is slightly dimmed. Okay. That's only.
That is where a lot of sweetness starts coming in, because that sweetness is coming. It is, you lose the taste for being unhappy. Once some wisecrack once said, the real problem is that a person is not satisfied to be unhappy all alone. If they are unhappy, they also want to go and infect a whole lot of other people and make them also unhappy by constantly either lamenting or speaking of their difficulties or harping on issues that they should let go of. So when the sweetness starts to come in, because we are seeing how Krishna is arranging things for us, or sometimes it may be testing us, but there is some knowledge that he is revealing from within the heart, because all this is happening at the level of the heart. This whole Bhakti Yoga suggests the heart, not a material. Why
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
it say recording?
No.
Okay,
Just because you had gone in between, so I just didn't want to
all right,
lose what you're saying.
okay. So what did I stop with? I'm wondering
So
whether I lost.
I think you were talking about. You were saying that the Bhakti Yoga severs the heart, not a material affection, and
Yeah.
you were just saying in general, like that's like only in Bhakti Yoga it's possible that this can happen,
Okay.
and that in Jnana Yoga it's not possible because in Bhakti it's like you're getting a direct connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and
Yeah.
whereas in Jnana it's like you're a little away from that, so it's not possible in that way.
And in Bhakti Yoga, because you start tasting some sweetness in that relationship with the Supreme Lord, that's what we are doing. We've made him like a joint venture partner in our efforts, and he's there to help us. So, one analogy, I think it comes in the Bhagavatam, one of the purports, or maybe one of the other commentaries, which says that while we are trying, or while through Bhakti Yoga, we are trying to clean our heart, which is like a dirty mirror. the Supreme Lord, seeing that, also helps in the cleaning process by arranging certain experiences that may be testing, it may be you should stop the, yeah, hello.
Yeah, continue, Supriya Chechi. It's fine.
Okay.
I think in between it got muted, but then yeah.
Yeah, no, there was a phone call coming in. I just
Oh, okay.
like blocked it. Maybe a courier, but let them deal with it.
That's fine because like since you're using the phone, it will happen actually, but that's okay. It's fine.
I know. I don't know how to block because I don't know who's going to call. That's the reason. It's
Again, it's mute. Again, it's mute. That thing. Yeah, I think she's got a call right now. Just
all right. Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry for
Okay.
that.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Now Krishna is going to give him knowledge. This next verse is just talking of these two words, phenomenal and numinous. Phenomenal means basically material. Here, the phenomena you see around you, and numinous means spiritual knowledge. He's basically going to give a summary of the world as it is in the coming verses, made up by certain material elements and by his material energy and his spiritual energy. That's what's going to come on now. And in verse 3, before he gives this information, it is like a rider. Not, you can't call it a disclaimer. It's like a rider in verse 3. You just go down to verse 3. If you scroll down to verse 3.
Out of the
Yeah.
many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth.
Okay, this makes the whole task that we have set for ourselves to try to get to know Krishna and and try to reach him. It seems very daunting because here he is saying, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So the point is, what here he's the purport puts things in perspective. The purport is telling us there are various grades of men, and out of many thousands, only one may be interested in transcendental realization to know, what is this, what higher matters. Generally, this crucial verse here in the purport, if you go down, read that. Generally, mankind. Can
Generally,
you find
mankind
that?
is Generally, mankind is simply engaged in the animal propensities, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, and hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. The first
Right
six
now,
chapters of the
there. Now, this what may seem like very harsh criticism, because when you look around you, this is what's actually going on. There are different levels of sophistication in how they do it, but basically it is this: generally mankind is engaged in these four propensities.
animalistic tendencies.
Also be considered harsh, that why the commentator, why is Prabhupada calling it animal propensities? This is actually what he's doing is he's paraphrasing one of the Upanishadic verses, which it goes like this: Ahara nidra bhaya maithunam cha samanyam etat pashubhir samanam pashubhir naranam. Basically, ahara, food, nidra, sleep, bhaya, fear, that is defending. We are always frightened, so we have to make arrangements for our defense. Maithunamcha, mating. Samanya metat pashubhir naranam. It's same. It is absolutely the same between animals, the four-legged and whichever other creatures, and the human beings. And the only thing that marks a difference, the next two verse, the lines go on to say, the only thing that actually makes a distinction between the two is if human beings show the capacity to inquire about higher matters and to basically to inquire about God. So when you stop and think, I've seen powerful preachers and speakers point out, you think about the matter, it is true. Food, the poor stray dog might eat whatever he gets in the rubbish bin, or this another kind of dog may have the karma to get fancy food in a human, like as a pet dog, a domestic dog. But and that apart, human beings, we make elaborate arrangements for food. We don't literally just pounce on the food. We have a kind of developed cuisine and etiquette and so on, how to eat. And in the West, of course, you have different tools to eat the food, or even in China, you have chopsticks and so on. But basically, food is a major concern. So also with sleeping, the animals sleep wherever they can find some place. We make elaborate arrangements for sleeping. Defending, for the bird that's always chirping, it's looking for food and it's warning in their bird language of bigger birds that are coming looking for prey. That's why this constant so also in a jungle, if you go, the animals have a language, their own language, through which they are warning others of carnivore that's out prowling. And so the monkeys set up a chatter. That's, if you read these wildlife books, Jim Corbett and so on, Kenneth Anderson actually lived in that Bangalore parts in South India. But he, what today we know as White, what is it called? White, not Chapel, that part of Bangalore.
Whitefield.
Whitefield. That's right, White. Some of the most famous Kenneth Anderson Manito, the Goundarai Manito or something. I know they were set in the same parts which today have been made part of the extended city. So there you will see that this defending, the animals are all the time setting up a member of their species to watch out for their enemies. And if you look at humans, even a luxury apartment, but you pay through your nose for security, and then you set up an alarm system, because we are always living in fear. In this mentality of the ordinary general mankind, with no real knowledge of who is really in control and what is real protection, we are constantly in fear and making arrangements to defend ourselves. So also mating, the human beings do it in the luxury and comfort of private houses, whereas it is for the dog, it is out on the street, or the cow, or whichever creature. And hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. So that way it is correct that one out of thousands of men may only even bother to try and find out about these matters. Now, even amongst those, if you take all those individuals who are interested, who have some spiritual religious inclination, and put them all together in one category, amongst them, many lose their way because they don't know me in truth. That is, they are happy with mystic siddhis if they are on a Ashtanga Yoga path. They are happy with an impersonal conception of the Lord. That is, they are happy just to merge into the light of the Brahma Jyoti. So that's why this is like a rider, that it's not going to be easy. And if you just jump down in that, go down, scroll down in that same purport, the next para that starts as Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes. Do you find that? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I don't mean that particular statement. The next statement that starts with, although non-devotees declare that the path of bhakti, that's right. Yeah, you want to read it?
Yeah, although non-devotees declare the path of bhakti or devotional service is very easy, they cannot practice it. If the path of bhakti is so easy as the non-devotee class of men proclaim, then why do they take up the difficult path? Actually, the path of bhakti is not easy. The so-called path of bhakti practiced by unauthorized persons without knowledge of bhakti may be easy, but when it is practiced factually according to the rules and regulations, the speculative scholars and philosophers fall away from the path.
Okay, now just stop there, because here there's an important point to be made. You come the minute you say that you're interested in Krishna, invariably you will come across people who will say they love Krishna, and how Krishna comes and talks to them, and how I have this experience all the time. I don't mean our ISKCON devotees, because at least we want them not to talk like that. I mean more local people, how they get the smell of Krishna in the breeze when they are sitting alone, how in the afternoon they heard some strange sounds in the kitchen and they found somebody was playing with all the utensils. Now, this kind of stuff, because it is actually called sahajiya. Sahaj in Hindi means saral, sahaj, very easy. So for them, they think achieving God or coming in touch with Krishna is so easy that they make the whole thing very cheap. At one level it is easy, because if there is genuine surrender and longing in the heart, Krishna reciprocates. But if there is there is genuine reciprocation, it is usually such a powerful experience that one wouldn't open one's mouth about it. One would keep it to oneself, because it's just such a life altering moment or a life altering realization. And then a series of those things happen. Yeah, of course, you may talk about it privately with someone who you discuss these issues. You don't go around bandying it around to the whole world that Krishna and you are on familiar terms. That is called sahajiya. It's a very big curse in Vrindavan. This Vrindavan Dham, when you go, whoever goes, and this is again a warning we give our ISKCON devotees, one has to really watch out, because there are so many fakes and frauds. And now it's reached such scandalous proportions in famous temples like I think it was the Banki Bihari temple. The Banki Bihari temple, this is not an ISKCON temple, this is an ancient, authorized, very famous temple where
Supriya
they,
Chechi, just
yeah,
1 second. Sorry to interrupt you. That Zoom meeting, no, it's gonna end now. The time limit is there, so I'll just send you another link. Is that fine?
go. No,
So
no,
I'll just. Sorry for interrupting you in between. You were just saying something
yeah.
actually. I don't like interrupting actually, but like I'll just end this meeting. I'll send you another invite. Okay. Just 1 second. Stop recording.
Yeah.
All right, we are back. All right. Yeah, you can continue, Sujichi.
So we were talking about how this whole approach of making bhakti seem very easy, and as if Krishna will come on talking terms with you like this, is become such a, what is the word for it? It's not a curse, but it's yeah, it's like a sickness. And in places like Vrindavan Dham, one has to really watch out, because you can get completely waylaid. And in a famous temple there, we knew family friends from here. Actually, he's an IS officer, retired, my dad's age group, and his wife, and they wanted all help and everything, and they went to Vrindavan and they went to ISKCON and they stayed somewhere. And then they went to this Banki Bihari temple, which, as I told you, is really worth watching, because the peculiarity there, the custom is that they give darshan only for about, say, 5 seconds and then close the curtain. Again, they opened for 5 seconds and close the curtain. So it's called jhalak darshan. That is, they just give you a jhalak each time. Because there is a story of how a genuine devotee came all the way walking from Jaipur some 200, 300 years ago, when no other, or came by bullock cart or something. And he had such longing for the Lord that he was heartbroken to go away. And when he went away, apparently the deity walked with him. And when he went back, reached home after some 3, 4 days, the deity was sitting there or waiting there. And in Vrindavan, the deity went missing. And then a whole lot of things happened. So
Oh.
after that, repetition, they just do this. They show a curtain, they open the curtain and show you, give you darshan for a couple of minutes, and then a couple of maybe 10 seconds, and then they shut it again, so that no devotee who's staring or was looking at the deity can keep staying long enough to build up some intense rapport. And this is just the custom there. That's fine. I don't have any quarrel with all that. But what happened was, for this couple who went from here, they sponsored a pot of kheer, payasam. And in the pot of payasam, it is now a regular racket there. A tiny Laddu Gopal brass deity is put in the. So these people, when they got the payasam, they were um foolishly, or it was just foolhardy, they thought it was some kind of miracle. This is what the panda, the priest, is waiting for. The priest convinces them it is some kind of miracle. They are doing it regularly. That these are the chosen couple who have now have a Laddu Gopal, and Krishna personally came into the payasam that they sponsored, and promptly the priest, of course, collects some huge FT dakshina, 2,000 or 3,000 or something. So that kind of idea that bhakti is actually so easy is very misleading. It's called sahajiya worship. There's a lot of sahajiya stuff on the internet, all kinds of concocted explanations and experiences being shared. So one has to watch out for it, because in the last paragraph of this purport, some 4 lines down, there is a warning that even the great demigods are sometimes confused about Krishna. Even the great demigods, where compared to the demigods, even the great demigods are sometimes confused about Krishna. Why is he saying this? Because you just have to think back how Brahma
Yeah, that
miss.
story of Brahma when he
We
like yeah, he sees Krishna with Balaram, and he sees all the pastimes, and he's wondering how these people, like how Krishna is able to do all this. So he kidnaps essentially Krishna's friends and takes them to his place. And then like for a year in that time, Krishna like sort of he understands what's going on. So he, through his potency, he creates Balarama and all the other friends and all that stuff. And then for a year they're like uh they're with their, like they're playing and they're with everybody and all stuff. So while the real people are in, like they're in like the heavens basically, they just kept there for the time being. And in that whole time, like it's kind of like a blessing, because like for a lot of the mothers of Vrindavan, they're like thinking, they are constantly praying that I wish my son was like Krishna in many ways, or like I wish I could, because they sometimes had more affection for Krishna than than Yashoda had. So like in one sense, this Brahma coming and doing this was like a blessing for the Vrindavan mothers, because they all ended up having children that are similar to Krishna, because all of them, Krishna was basically like, he just he basically created these his friends from his own potency. And then after
Yes.
that, like when Brahma realizes that not everything, everybody is like completely fine, like nobody is creating any problems, then he realizes that this person is like, I mean, Krishna is the real supreme personality of Godhead. So he comes down and then he offers his prayers and offers apologies and all that. And then Krishna shows him like the multiple universes where there are multiple Brahmas. And there's like, in this universe Brahma has four heads, but there are universes where Brahma has like 10,000, 1,000,000, 1 lakh. So Brahma is like, so he sees how small he is, like, and he sees how Krishna is like, he's like the one supreme being in all of this. So then he like kind of understands where his place is in that whole thing.
I must give you so credit for all these details of particular what is called the Brahma Vimohana Leela. I
uh,
think so. Like with Brahma, so also with Indra, when Indra tried to flood Govardhan
Flood Govardhan, and with all the
with
lighting balls, yeah.
and apologize when he saw that baby Krishna could lift the entire Govardhan mountain and use it as an umbrella to protect his family and friends on the tip of his little finger. So Indra comes and he takes the Surabhi cow and comes and asks for forgiveness. So also Lord Shiva, but Shiva is never doesn't have ever to be chastened or corrected. It's just Lord Shiva makes even a further advancement on his path as a great ascetic and yogi with the Mohini Murti Leela. How Krishna is actually bewildered and chases her, and then he never takes offense. He doesn't turn antagonistic towards Vishnu, and then Vishnu basically says, now you see, like that. So even the demigods can become confused. So it is not something so easy. One has to constantly watch oneself, not just in terms of practice, that's of course crucial, but one also has to watch for all kinds of pitfalls. That's why it is said that hardly anybody finally knows me in truth or comes to me. It's not meant to put us off, it's meant as a warning so that we don't think it's so easy. Sometimes it takes across lifetimes, or sometimes we've already started in a previous lifetime. That's why now we have so much taste for it. So we have to guard the chances that we are getting very carefully and leave the rest to Krishna. Let the teacher decide how many tests the student has to go through in order to really come out with flying colors or be able to get exit from the school finally in this 10th board or 12th. It is for the teacher to decide what lessons and exercises to set, and it's for the teacher to decide at what level whether the student requires a double promotion or not. You have parents pushing and pushing children into double promotion. So here, like that, on the spiritual path, a lot depends on Krishna, and we have to really surrender. In the next verse, in chapter 4, in verse 4, he is just giving 8 names of 8 parts of his material energies. All right,
Mm.
simple enough. We can say it's all straightforward. You hear about the Pancha Mahabhutas: earth, water, fire, air, ether. So far, so good. But the last three, mind, intelligence, and false ego, Now, mind and intelligence, you can say the average materialist, whether it's an allopath, whether it's a psychiatrist, all right, they also bandy around. And the average educated person just know there is, we have a mind, we have, some people have their own mind more than others. As intelligence, all right, you have something called the intelligence, the quotient, now the IQ. But false ego, that eighth item there in this verse, in this list, the false ego and how it works and why it's given to us is something not known at all to the materialist or to the philosopher. Okay, you hear names like men have big egos, or oh, your false ego, and your ego has been hurt, and you're such an egoistic brute, and these kind of casual terms. But how the false ego is one of Krishna's energies that's specifically given to the jiva when he's sent down to this material world and given a material body to facilitate his enjoyment and lording it over material nature. There's like a whole big plan behind why ahankar or false ego is given. And that's the reason why the jiva goes from one body to the next body after death. It's not just the soul that goes. Mind, intelligence, and false ego again go with that soul. Why does the mind go into the next body? Because the mind is a repository of all memories, experiences. Intelligence goes okay. Why does the false ego go? Because the false ego is really that special tool that's given to us. The minute we open our eyes and find we are in a material body, we are in the material world, it's the false ego that tells us to dominate, to exploit, to take advantage of those who are weaker than us. All negative things. But the false ego is given to us as an asset. You get into a boat and you start rowing, you're given boat oars. Why? Because you need that to navigate and move forward. Now, we land here in the material world. Why? Because in the first place, we wanted to enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord. So it's not enough we just come without the enjoying propensity. Where does the enjoying propensity come from? It really comes from the false ego. Mine, I am superior. I want to take advantage. I want to put everybody and everything else at my service. So once we understand the importance of the false ego, why it's given to us, how it operates, we can check ourselves so nicely on the spiritual track. That's why this information is being given. We can really check and watch how our own false ego is misleading us or bringing us into needless conflicts, whether it's with family members or whether it's in workplaces or whether it's even people far away. So this 8 items, of which the 5 Pancha Mahabhutas, a lot of people now know: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Mind, intelligence, also people know, but false ego, to understand in its entirety, you have to really hear from Krishna about it. We are going to hear much more about it later. And the next verse, in verse 5, he's simply saying this is all inferior material energy. Then I have my superior energy, which comprises you all, that is the jiva, the living entities. And just by virtue of superior and inferior, the jiva is superior energy of the Lord, that is all of us, because it's spirit. It cannot be destroyed like matter. Because it's superior, the natural tendency to start taking advantage of and exploiting material nature, which is inferior. That's what you see, this forestation, deforestation, this crisis, the land mafia, the rocks being blown up on river banks, chaos resulting in floods. Where is it coming from? Because material nature is inferior, and the misguided people, even if they are so respected members of the government and they are overdoing it because their nature is to take advantage of and exploit material nature. So he's already given us some information, which is there is 8 categories. In the material category, there are 8 items. And then he's talking about a completely different category, which is the spirit soul. And in verse 6, that everything that exists is a product of matter and spirit. That's the first sentence in the purport. All created beings, that's the verse. You see verse 6.
Yeah,
all
yeah.
created beings have their source in these 2 natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. Basically, he's giving information about himself, that he is the beginning and the end of everything. And in verse 7, famous verse, because it's giving an analogy of a string of pearls. Just look at verse 7.
O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread.
Matah parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjay. There is nothing superior to me. Matah me, parataram beyond me or higher than me. Nanyat, nothing exists. Dhananjaya is another name for Arjuna. Mai sarvanidam protam sutre manigana iva. Manigana is like a string of pearls. What a lovely analogy, because you can't see the string. And yet the pearls can't hang like that unless there is a string, invisible thread or string running through it. So everything in the universe, he is assuring Arjuna, rests upon me, my will, my decisions, my everything rests upon Krishna like pearls are strung on a thread. This is information asserting his position with Arjuna before he really starts instructing. And in case Arjuna hasn't got it, and for the benefit of other listeners, verses 8, 9, 10, they are going to talk of how up to verse 11, 8, 9, 10, 11, he just gives different examples how he is there in everything. He is all pervasive, how he is the essence of everything. So you have, take a look at verse 8. It says, I am the taste of water. You want to read that?
Yeah, O son of Kundi, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and ability in man.
All right, the taste of water, whatever is the essence of something. Water doesn't have color. Water doesn't have any smell. It has no odor. So although in ordinary language we say water is tasteless unless you add sugar or salt to it. So the only thing that it has as an active ingredient in it is its taste. Yeah, water, you feel something when you put water in your mouth. And then you add something, then the taste changes. The light of the sun and the moon. For the sun and the moon, for us, how do we know they're around? Because they emit light. The bright, warm, fiery yellow color of the sun, and for the moon, it is this cool light, moonlight. The syllable the syllable Om is called the Pranav Mantra. Amongst all Vedic mantras, he says the key one, the active ingredient. Every bit of chanting in the Vedic system starts with Om. So that he says, I am present in that. I am there in a key area. I am present. I am the syllable Om or the in the Vedic mantras. And not only in Hinduism, there is a subject called etymology, which is the root of all words. And just as Om, like that, Amen in Christianity, both come from the same root. And Omni, not as in the car, not in that Maruti Omni car, but Omni as in descriptions of the divine, of the Lord, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. Yeah, all these three words come from the same root. So he's saying here, I am the syllable Om in the Vedic mantra. I am the light of the sun and the moon. And in the next verse, I am the heat in fire. I am the life of all that lives. I am ability in man in the previous verse. Ability in man meaning that you have to have ability to get something done. So that is the essence of a human being. He has so many other qualities, but you put a human being in nature or you put a human being in a situation, he or she makes an impact because something happens. They do something, that is ability. I am the original fragrance of the earth. Everything that's created in this universe has its own unique smell. And we become aware of the fragrance of the earth maybe after the first rainfall. People talk of the smell of the earth after a little water has fallen on it, and so on. So all these verses are basically being given to us to tell Arjuna that he's all pervasive. He's in everything and everywhere. And there are branches of philosophy or religion, if you like, called pantheism, which see God, they may not call him Krishna, in nature, in everything. Then this is what is considered, at least by a misguided Western viewpoint, it is called paganism, and they condemn it as something very backward. That is, paganism means that tribes that take rocks or worship trees.
Idol worship.
In the same mood, they were completely contemptuous of Hinduism without understanding anything about it, especially the British when they were here. But the point is that because it is Krishna's job or Krishna's wish, sweet wish, to reclaim all the living entities, no matter what caste, what country, what sex, gender, etc., to reclaim and take them out of this miserable repeated cycle of birth and death, he makes many options available for them to become aware of him. Therefore, he's all pervasive and he's spelling it out here. You see water, you can remember me. You see the sun, you can remember me, and so on. And in fact, in one famous, like a lecture or exchange, Krishna was speaking to a Western audience of hippies, and he said, all right, you have difficulty understanding Krishna, you go to the bar and you drink. And even if you're a drunkard, the liquor has some water, right? It's not solid, it's water. Try and remember Krishna while you're drinking, because he says, I am the taste of water. And there is water even whether it is wine, beer, gin, vodka, and so on. So Prabhupada picking up, Srila Prabhupada picking up the very liberal and expansive mood that Krishna is showing here, was, further liberalized the whole interpretation, and it was even known to have told a drunkard, all right, you want to drink, you go to the bar, you drink. When you're drinking, remember Krishna. Remember this verse and make the connection between water and the liquor and how Krishna is the taste of water. So you see from here the
So like
generosity of
the thing is, one like I have one thing like kind of doubt actually there. Like, so it's like in when he said that, like, is it like in his normal day to day thing, he'd be very like he'd be obviously very conservative in his like in his viewpoints, like when it comes
yeah,
to Krishna Bhakti at least, like how to
yeah,
practice it and stuff like that. But in that case, like he was very, like you say, he's very liberal, and he extended that like he allowed somebody who was a drunkard to like take that take the drink and think of it as like water inside of it and Krishna being there. But like
right.
it's is that you can't, but it's not is there a recommended thing to be like that always, like to kind of to like you, because then you can take every, basically because of that you can take every, like say, sin or vice or whatever, and then
Yeah.
extend that same kind of belief into that, and then
Yeah, sure. I think he was trying to connect with the person who had taken the trouble, despite being a drunkard, to come and hear his class.
oh,
That
okay.
person had taken two steps towards him. Prabhupada didn't go into a bar and say this. You see, he was talking to an audience of a few people who had taken the trouble to come and hear a Bhagavad Gita lecture in the evening. Some of them were even drunk. But because he had to make a connect with them, he wanted to connect with them, and he, in this way, by making them see this extended definition or explanation, it meant he was sure. I mean, he had so much confidence that Krishna was using him as an instrument that he was sure that they would come back to hear more. Because if Krishna is such an all merciful character that is appearing inside the taste of the water, which is inside the liquor in the glass of the drunkard, then Krishna is worth getting to know. This is not a fear-inducing, harsh, cruel, punishing God. This is the message he's trying to get across. Krishna is the all-loving friend, father, playful son, and so on.
No,
I think it.
actually, what I was asking you, like with regards to Prabhupada, I'm saying, with like
Yeah,
with him in his case, like
yeah.
is that generally a good thing to be like to think of it in that way? Because like I mean, on one hand, a lot of people will say that okay, that's you're thinking about everybody, but then there'll be other people who will be like, how can you say that? We have to have some kind of respect for the Vedas and things like that, like or
Oh, absolutely, because he's what this Prabhupada's mood and mission, and he definitely came under criticism by some very orthodox forces. But then, as you know, it is not to condone this drinking and being a drunkard. It is not to condone and support it. But in terms of reaching out to them, nobody is blocked off at all. And that is why he went. I don't know if you read that section of the Prabhupada Leela Amrita. There was a mantra rock dance festival organized by some of his disciples. This was in America, where the place was full of neon lights and totally drugged up and high. I'll try and find that and send it to you, that description. But it was extraordinary. But Prabhupada went in there This was America and this was not the UK. He barely had 5 disciples or followers at that time. But they said this is a big thing. All the people will come because so many top rock musicians are going to perform. We are going to take a slot and you will come on around midnight, Srila Prabhupada, by which time already the place will be full and we can charge special tickets for our session and we make a lot of money and so on. Prabhupada went in there and he actually got the entire huge audience of some 1,000 people, open air audience, to chant the Hare Krishna mantra for at least half an hour or 1 hour in drunken or whatever state. So this was the beginning. It made big headlines in the newspapers. A lot of those people came back for personal darshan with him. They gave up their bad habits. So he was so extraordinary in his conviction that he had to be act as an instrument and help those really lost souls, especially in the West, who are living like worse than animals. So this was instruction given by his.
Where do you think that that belief came from for him to do that? Like to do that.
Training, years of training and conviction in what is years of preparation and training. His own parents trained him in a particular way. He meets his guru when he is just a young grihasta, basically in his 20s in 1922. The guru just tells him one thing: you are educated, you are a young educated man. Uh, you have to take this message of Krishna and Lord Chaitanya and the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam and save those souls that are suffering, and they are going to go to hellish situations because they're living like worse than animals. And you have to somehow do it. And Prabhupada argues back with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, the guru that he's meeting. He barely meets him twice in his life. And says, but surely the independence, the national movement and India getting independence is more important. That's around the corner. So the Bhaktisiddhanta, the guru says, no, this Krishna consciousness and the need to make people aware of what the human life is for is so urgent, it cannot wait until we become an independent nation. You just have to do it. But he still took another 20, 30 years to get down to doing it. It didn't happen. It took more than that. Sorry, this happened in 1922. Actually, things started moving only around in the 1970s. And so, but Prabhupada was so convinced that this was his mission and that he got the empowerment and he got the courage. He had a particular mood and a mission. And it's a very extraordinary mood that he showed. And even today, I know in Trivandrum, a lady who died recently, she was 65, Prabha. Now, she had an unfortunate background. That's different. Her own husband died of drink, separate matter. She lost a lot of her money. She came, she was preached to, she was a Sai worshipper, she was preached to and brought to this movement. Until 5 years ago, when her health was okay, she was walking into bars here, what they call Akbari contractors. People get scared to go there because she was no longer young, her hair was snow white. So she didn't have to fear that they will come chasing her as a widow. But she went in there and asked for donations for Krishna Janmashtami. Who will dare do it? She never went alone. She took 2 of these ISKCON Prabhu devotees, men, young boys with her, for whom she was like a mother. So what gave her? She would go to Benoy Marbles and she came into, because I had to go to Benoy Marbles later to select tiles for this flat. So she told me, oh, there's a whole tragedy there. His daughter jumped from the terrace and committed suicide. So he's not a happy man. You try and give him some Krishna stuff when you go to select your tiles. So the same lady basically would walk into these, like we said, the temple would give her some protection, Akbari contractors, and get money out of them. Why? Because their money basically would be used maybe for an abhishekam, for flowers, and some way they will get some pious credit. So she was really reflecting the same mood. She may not have known this verse. She was not all that erudite or philosophically inclined. Yeah, if you showed her this verse, she would have heard in classes. But she may not have necessarily been going in the consciousness that Krishna said, I am in the taste of water, in the liquor, and so on. But this is the same mood of extreme compassion that we are actually supposed to show. At the same time, one has to be real. I mean, Prabhupada says you can't go and say, I'm going to preach to a tiger and go into a cage. There are stupid people who have done it, not ISKCON. There was even about, say, 10 years ago, I saw
There's
a newspaper.
I don't know if you've heard this, but there's this person, it's not a Krishna devotee, but it's a Christian sort of missionary person. He went to the Sentinelese Island. Have you heard that?
No, tell me.
No.
Yeah.
So there's an island of the coast of Andaman and Nicobar. It's called Sentinel Island. So in that island, no, there's like a tribe of people living in that
Cannibal.
island. Cannibal,
Cannibal.
like not cannibal. I don't know what's cannibal, but then basically like they live. It's like a tribe of people. Nobody's ever gone to
Ah,
that island. Nobody's ever seen what's happened on the island. So this group of people, nobody knows since when they've been there. So usually, like whenever somebody tries to come to the island, they'll kill them on the spot. So they've
oh,
been in the reports before the Indian Navy has sent ships, and then they'll shoot arrows and all that stuff, and
mhm.
all these things happen. So then the Indian government has mostly said, okay, nobody comes there. So there was this one American person recently, like some years back, that decided it was a Christian missionary basically. He decided like he will go there and he will try to go to that place and spread the word of God, like Christian, like Jesus Christ. He went there thinking that God will protect him. The minute he landed in that place, he was shot dead
I
by those tribe people.
see.
So like he had so much conviction that Jesus Christ will protect him, but then like he went there, he got out of the boat, and he just died basically there.
Okay. Understand, you are asking a big question that how do we know that it is the right thing to go into these situations? And yeah, I think you are asking because it seems all this
Yeah, actually,
just
I was just making a statement like that because you had said no that like like with blind faith, like some it's not completely like
yeah, I
guaranteed that like yeah like guaranteed that God will like protect you in that kind of situation, like
I read in the paper that in the Calcutta Zoo's some stupid character. I think basically it was not religiously motivated. He was just drunk or something, or he had some he's gone off his head. That if he shows compassion to the tiger won't do anything to him. So if someone managed to get into the tiger's cage because there
cage,
wasn't
yeah. Okay.
the tiger didn't eat him, but naturally the tiger gave him one smack with his paw and the man died. So this kind of foolhardy stuff, it's not recommended at all. Same time, Prabhupada was also tested. And in all these situations, Prabhupada practically, Srila Prabhupada took his directions from Krishna directly. So Krishna also pitched in some of these impossible situations. And this is often the experience of even average ordinary devotees, not of the standing of Srila Prabhupada, that they try and give this knowledge or a book. Oh God, there was a Swami, he's no longer alive, who distributed books behind the Iron Curtain. We're talking about Russia. Big risks, huge risks. Some people do die, but that is between God and them to settle the accounts. Some people do give up their lives, when these things happen. But and they say, but their life has still been well spent. But that is really between God and them. And in Srila Prabhupada's case, he could take this compassionate uh, approach because he was sure that he was simply carrying out in disciplic succession what his guru had told him. Now, this disciplic succession is another very important quality because if we just practice spiritual life, not aligning ourselves with knowledge that is coming in that line, then it's often like I told you, we'll end up like the Sahajiyas, just claiming that Krishna is there playing in the afternoon in our kitchen and upsetting the utensils, and all kinds of bunk like this. So this knowledge, this philosophical knowledge, we have to be thoroughly grounded in it, and our practice is also very important. And whole awareness and being part of a process that's cleaning our heart and bringing us closer to Krishna. We are coming closer to verse 14, which we'll naturally tackle only in another class. But verse 14, you can take a whole class on it because it's this Devi Hesha Gunamaya Mama Maya Durataya. It's like the key to our situation. It's really like a key, a tool with which you can unlock a door and start moving around. This, like I said, we can take a whole class on it. Not that we will, but
Hmm.
Devi Gunamaya Mama Maya Duratyaya. This one. Mamevam ye prapadyante maya metan tarantite. But before we come to it, we are going to just stick with verse 11, which is the last of these four verses, 8, 9, 10, 11. where Krishna is showing how he's all pervasive. And he's saying something very strong and daring here. If you see verse 11, you have verse
Yeah.
11 here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
he's
am the
like,
strength.
yeah. So
Re-
he's like, I'm the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles. O Lord of the Bharatas.
All right. Now, the purport is it like it throws light. Why is Krishna talking about the strength of the strong and about sex life and so on? The strong man's strength should be applied to protect the weak, not for personal aggression. So what a true statement that often when we see if someone has strength or boldness or courage, they do it more to harass others. But that's not what's required. Krishna is present in the strength of that strong man who uses it to protect others or to stand up for others,
Hmm.
devoid of desire. Because passion and desire, when they are at play, immediately means you're going to use your strength for selfish reasons to satisfy your own some selfish desires. People who overpower others and rob them or molest them and so on. That's wrong. That's not what he means. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles. So here again, Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna. After all, Arjuna is a warrior, a Kshatriya. He is not sitting in the mountains in saffron. So, as he says, that and as a Kshatriya, normally virility is connected with the Kshatriya mood. And therefore, because that is again part of their nature, in God's scheme of things, the Kshatriya is allowed to marry more than once because the understanding is he will take that much more responsibility of those extra wives and raising the children that are born of those wives as strong Kshatriyas for the protection of society in the traditional way of things. Not now, not that you can suddenly start, people can now just start marrying a second and a third time. They barely have what it takes to sustain one marriage financially and emotionally and so on. So and it says here that that is sex life according to religious principle, meaning ideally the purpose of sex life is not just for our personal enjoyment, it is to take the burden of children, and should be for the propagation of children, not otherwise. The responsibility of parents is then to make their offspring, because you not only just bring forth children and feed them and clothe them and be with them all the time, but the responsibility is to make them. And how, where do the children come from? Naturally from sex life. Otherwise, there aren't going to be any children. So, so bluntly and so frankly, Krishna is talking about even these issues and saying that he's present even in that. This is still the all pervasive aspect of Krishna. And verse 12 and 13, why this constantly is going to now be talking about the gunas, the three modes, which are compared with the ropes that tie up people. Know that all states of being, be they goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am, in one sense, everything, but I am independent, meaning he is not affected by the modes, but the modes operate under his command. And what is the role played by the modes? Basically, it ties up hand and foot the conditioned jiva. And unless, like a convict is tied up in a prison, and unless a superior force comes and orders that convict to be set free, similarly, if we please Krishna and we connect with him, he commands the three modes to just let go. And the extent to which people become deluded by the three modes is beautifully picked up in verse 15, about the kind who won't surrender to Krishna, who are often they pursue knowledge of Krishna or pursue knowledge of the scriptures and get completely deluded. I'd just like to end this session on a lighter, not lighter note, just give you like a sneak preview of something I will go into greater detail in our next class when we discuss how the three modes, the gunamai, are very difficult to overcome and accept if you surrender to him and so on. And that is connected to verse 15, the four types who will not surrender and never surrender to Krishna. Yesterday, my mother and I had a social visit to go to, and it is actually the palace here. We've known them for many years, and we can see from our house, it's very dilapidated now, and because it's a huge setup, and there are just the two elderly princesses there, and there were no men folk there. And we started talking about a common friend whose name I will not mention because it is risky. The common friend at one time was a friend of ours. He must be about 45 now. And he, and with the support of his father, a famous historian, There was a famous grandfather literary figure. I won't mention names because you would pick it up, at least not during the recording. It's the young man, not so young now because he's 45, has gone so off studying the ancestry of the royal family and for historical reasons, and studying temples and studying Vedas and studying Tantra and Mantra, and at one stage studying even Hare Krishna stuff. He's now put himself up as a member of a royal family, a claimant to the properties, and he's got a whole Facebook page where he calls himself the Prince of Ereniel. Ereniel is a small town in Kanyakumari. It's a dilapidated palace that's all half broken and gone. It's an archaeological site. This fellow who used to come to our house, who was fairly respectful, and I don't know, he always had a weird streak in him, a very dominating and aggressive nature, and his mother was too scared to say no to anything he wanted.
Supriya Chechi, Supriya Chechi, that recording is gonna get over now. So I'll just I'll send you the link again. I'll just send you the link again. Is that fine?
Okay. Okay, to 10 more minutes only, then I have to.
Hey guys, the podcast with Supriya Chechi had to be cut short due to some technical issues. So we'll catch you next week. Bye bye.